Hey everyone, Crow here, and this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Pinball, a new table for Pinball M, and I'm at a slight disadvantage here because I've never seen any of the movies, and all I really know about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what I've heard about secondhand. So I know about Leatherface, and I guess that's about it. Anyway, before I continue on about how little I know about the franchise, I'll say that this table was released for Pinball M on June 6, 2024, and Zen Studios gave me access to a special game build that allows me early access to this table. So that's why I'm able to work on this video before the game's actually released, and why I can't say for certain what the price point for this table will be, but I'd be pretty confident in saying that it'll more than likely be $5.49 USD, since that's been the price point for every other table in Pinball M. And just to be clear, I'm using the Steam version of Pinball M as a point of reference since that's the only platform I play the game on, but it should be pretty similar for all other platforms. So as for the table itself, there's one thing that really stood out for me, and that would be the chainsaw. It's actually pretty cool. There's a ramp that leads up into it, and if you hit it enough times, the chainsaw starts up, and I kind of assumed that that'd be the way you'd start the game modes on this table, but no, it doesn't do that. It does have a very important and unique function on this table though, but before I get to that, I just want to point out some of the other objects on this table. The next biggest object is the bus that's just south of the chainsaw, and that's used to lock up balls for a multi-ball mode. There's also a decapitated head in a bag hanging from a rail, which is primarily used in one of the game modes, and it will actually move to different locations. And finally, there's Leatherface himself, who will use his chainsaw and other tools of torture on his victims, which are hilariously depicted by cardboard cutouts which happen to bleed when they're cut. It's kind of a bizarre thing to see. I wonder if there's any reason why more realistic depictions of these victims weren't used. You know what though? I'm fine with the bleeding cardboard cutouts of people. It's just so off the wall and I'm good with it. So getting back to that chainsaw, the centerpiece of the table, each time you hit that ramp, the meter on the ramp fills up, and when it's fully filled, the chainsaw starts. And as long as the chainsaw is running, all scores are multiplied. However, when the chainsaw is running, that meter on the ramp starts draining, and when it's empty, the chainsaw stops. But if you hit that ramp again while the chainsaw is running, not only will you fill the meter again, but you'll increase the score multiplier as well. In order to get good scores on this table, no matter what you do, you've got to get good at hitting that chainsaw ramp because you want that chainsaw to never stop running. And unfortunately for me, I would often do a pretty poor job of hitting that ramp to keep the chainsaw running. But the best way to start it up for each ball is to make the super skill shot. If you could plunge the ball with a light enough touch, you could feed the ball directly to the upper flipper on the table and use that to hit the ramp that wraps around and feeds the ball to the right flipper. It's actually not a difficult thing to do, and that's your regular skill shot. But immediately after that, if you can shoot the ball up into the chainsaw, well, that's the super skill shot, and that'll start the chainsaw right away without having to hit that ramp multiple times. It turns out that the different modes are started by hitting various shots multiple times, and unfortunately for me, this is where the table loses me a bit because the game modes are based off of characters from the movies, and I don't really get the references being made. I'll hear the same callouts being made over and over again.
I'm the one who got away, and I'm here to make sure you don't.
But no matter how many times I hear them, I don't really understand what's supposed to be going on. Now, I'm not going to blame this on the table. I think the assumption is that if you're playing this table, then you're familiar with the movies. But I'm just giving you my perspective on this as someone who hasn't seen the movies. At any rate, it doesn't prevent me from playing the game. I just have no context for any of the dialogue being spoken. There are a few other things going on this table, but the last one I want to mention is how the balls are locked on the table, because it's actually kind of cool. Off to the left are 3 drop targets that spell saw. If you drop those 3 targets, it opens a path to the chainsaw and get the ball in there, and the chainsaw just destroys it, complete with blood spraying out and everything. Now, as cool as that looks, that actually doesn't lock the ball. It only lights the ability to lock the ball. The next time you hit the ball up into the chainsaw, then the ball locks in the bus. So ultimately, I do like the table. I think it's a good design. There aren't any shots that seem incredibly difficult, and I never felt like the ball drained on me unfairly. The whole mechanic where keeping the chainsaw running as a score multiplier is pretty unique, but at the same time, that's where my frustrations lay with this table. And it's not the table's fault. It's really frustrations with myself every time I miss that chainsaw ramp when I need to prevent the chainsaw from running out of fuel. If there's ever a table that'll make you feel bad for missing a shot, it's this one. So if you're into Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this one is probably a no-brainer. Otherwise, if you're into Pinball M or horror-themed pinball tables in general, it's certainly not bad, and I recommend it, if not for just the fact that there aren't that many tables in Pinball M to begin with. I mean, what? This puts the total table count for Pinball M at like 7 now? At this rate, it's going to be a long time before we even see a dozen tables in Pinball M. Personally, I'd love to see something based on the Evil Dead series, so here's hoping that'll be something I'll see next time.